Good morning, everyone. I was sitting beside my husband and he said, is it you that are washing like this? And that's what you call the sea finish factor. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute delight to be here today to speak at Open for Business 3. And I want to thank Ecclesia Hills and the Hills Business Hub and every member of this family for daring to allow me to stand on this stage to speak when we have the likes of Ian and the minister coming through. Thank you so much. I don't take you for granted at all. And I must say, I always tell everyone I'm petrified. It's not a standard script, it's actually facts, because especially when it comes to faith-related things, because you can't be careless with the things of God. You can't be careless with the people of God. You can't be careless with your assignment. And so even more is required of you than in the world, right? So I'm trusting God that today I would share just a few things. I believe I have, 35 minutes? And I hope Abikem would not do payback. Because the last time she was speaking, I was doing her wrap-up. Okay, so today I've been asked to speak on SMEs as a vehicle for nation building. And it's a topic that is particularly dear to my heart because for many years of my career, for the most part, it appears that I am actually a corporate person, but the truth is I've actually played in the intersection between entrepreneurship and corporate for a very long time. And I've worked in 4 startups in Nigeria. So over the course of working in these startups, I picked up a few things that you should and shouldn't do as an SME if you want to be successful. Because most businesses, when they start, you actually start as a startup. So, are my slides up? Okay. All right, so let's go. So, it all started in this story I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about a business that I co-run with my husband, Lotanna-Anajemba, who's seated there. And, and right after that, I'm going to refer to him as he. Just for the sake of this conversation. And so in 2020, he was working for a big telecoms company as a head of a function and had been there for a while. He had worked in the industry for almost 20 years, I believe, at the time. And it got to a head in 2020. And for some reason, it made sense that he had to leave. It was a very hard decision for us as a family at the time because there was a kid under 1 year, under 1, and I wasn't working at the time. I had taken a sabbatical because of my son. So the sabbatical started and in 2019, and I kind of got into the sabbatical, if that makes sense. And I wanted to build and create a lot of things. I wanted to curate all of these things that God had shown me over the period of, at the time, maybe about 15 years working in various startups. So I started to build this entrepreneurship course. I was teaching online. I remember, between 2019 and 2020, I probably did about 40 sessions on different platforms, teaching different areas of entrepreneurship, non-stop, unpaid. Now, it's important to remember this because there's a journey as an entrepreneur, as an SME that you need to go to, and you would not necessarily make money from the beginning. So that and you don't see, the numbers are not numbering, you have to keep your eye on God and what He asked you to do. So this was me in 2020, with him having to leave his job in January of 2020, and there was no additional source of income. He had a very long time as a quote-unquote side. One of the things the Lord said to everyone is stop calling your side hustle. The side hustle never sin, always takes the cross. So it energy that it has for it to grow into what it's supposed to. So henceforth in this room calls their business, even if you have a job. And so he was doing this business, and it was a source of revenue for us as a family. And it did what it was supposed to do in the hours that was allotted to it, right? Because these things are proportionate. And so at the time, of course, we didn't know that COVID was about to hit. Because if we did, I don't think we would have been that brave, right? No. So March 2020, COVID hit. So it was a lot of uncertainties because now you're doing a business that requires people moving from point A to B in, as they say, an automobile. And then there's a lockdown, so nobody is what? Moving. That was the situation. So we literally had to say, what do we do? Like, oh my God, how do we manage a growing one-year-old child? No, so remember, I wasn't working. I was trying to change the world. So I couldn't contribute. And this was we're now solely reliant on this, what was a side hustle in lockdown. And so we started to look to God because it's the one that shows you where wealth is and what you need to do. One thing with God is that he always starts with what you have in your hands. So ask yourself, what do you have in your hands? God always starts with what you have in your hands. The skills, the talent, the knowledge that he's given you. And so we're reminded of the story of the parable of the talents. You know, as the story goes, he gave different talents to different people. He went away on a journey. To those he gave, some of them used the talents, did something with it. And he says that those who got 5 talents went, traded with them, and made another 5 talents. Some buried the talents inside the ground or wherever it was that they kept it in a corner, and waited for him to come back. And he said to those who were given, even more will be given unto them. And so we said, what do we have in our hands? And what we had was literally this business, this skill, this knowledge in the automobile industry that was something that was regarded as a hobby or just for fun and games, was now what we had to pour our entire energies into. But then I want to talk about what an SME is, because literally it was an SME. In fact, I'll call it an M, a micro business at the time, because at this time, between the two of us, remember, this is maybe coming to about 2 years of unemployment from my end, surviving on one income. We didn't have up to 1 million naira between us. Somebody will say to me, you even had 1 million, that's a lot. In the context of where we were, 15 years employed, having less than 1 million naira between the two of us was abysmal. So I want you to remember that context of your life. Because I don't want someone saying, you guys were okay, you started off with 1 million. No, not at both over 40 and having worked 15 years of our lives. Because sometimes, as an SME, you need to get to the point where you have no other option. No other option, and that's what happened to us. So who's an SME? Just for the purposes of definition and so that you can situate yourself properly in the context of this conversation, SMEs are categorized in 2 ways. The value of your revenue, or the size of the employees that you have, or the 2 of them. So micro would be less than 10 employees, and you have less than 5 million in assets. You're a micro. So as you are, start to situate yourself. A small business would then be 10 to 49 employees and will have 5 to 50 million in assets. And then a medium organization would be under 200 employees and 50 to 500 million in assets. So is it interesting that even a business that is doing 500 million is still regarded as a medium enterprise? But do you know how critical SMEs are to this nation, to nation building? First of all, they create jobs. There are less than 4% of organizations that you can class as the large corporations, the big multinationals, the Coca-Colas, the ExxonMobils, the Shells, all of those big organizations, the Apples, Oracles, Google. There's a very small percentage of them. That therefore means that the number of jobs that are available in those organizations are very few and far between. In addition to that, they are very niche in their skills requirement. So if you're not a technical subject matter expert, it's very difficult to get into those organizations. Who has a friend here in the last 1 year that has gotten into a big multinational? Anyone? In the last 1 year? Okay. Barely 4 people in this entire room. So that speaks to exactly what I'm talking about. And so SMEs create jobs. Because do you know what? At the end of this conference, you can walk up to somebody in this room, have a conversation with them, and based on the skill that you've demonstrated, they can literally hire you on the spot, cutting out layers of interview processes, and it gives you a chance. I remember when I started working, I literally would meet people, and they would create a job on the spot and hire me. That's what an SME does. And by virtue of doing that, I come in, I work, I get a skill, I get knowledge, get experience, then I can move. Nation building. So each and every one of you here can be an employer and should be an employer and create these opportunities. Of course, it drives innovation and entrepreneurship. When you work in the big multinationals, you are confined to a box. That's just how it is. A role that you can do as an SME, and you will do 10 different functions and do it well. In a multinational, in a big corporation, you'll be asked to do one thing, but do that one thing very well. So it doesn't always promote entrepreneurship and innovation, but SMEs will allow you to do that. It stimulates innovation and entrepreneurship, like I said. It also allows it's easier for people to collaborate when you have an SME, because I can do a barter system. I can say to someone, I said to someone once, I'll take care of all your human capital needs, and you take care of all my marketing needs. No money change hands. The two of us started to do that, and we added value to each other. I've had places where I've gone to speak for them for free, and when I need someone to teach as well, they do the same back for me. It's easier to do that as an SME. The big multinationals, you can't do that. There are red tapes and bureaucracies that need to go through, and it probably would not land anywhere because of the corporate governance structures in place in these organizations. But there is a prevailing backdrop in this economy. And I know that many people, we have doom and gloom about the Nigerian economy or Nigeria as a whole, and with good reason, because of all the years of, I don't want to say poor governance or poor leadership, but we've just not been able to get it right. But we're reminded in scripture that he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the cloud will not reap. It therefore means that there will always be rain, there will always be sunshine, there will be difficult situations and circumstances. But what do you do as a believer? But I want us to have knowledge and information, because it is needed if you're going to thrive and survive in this climate. So let me just tell you a few things about the Nigerian economy that you need to know. As an SME, you must know these numbers. You must know these numbers. Whether you're selling pure water, whether you're selling fashion, whether you're selling car parts, whether you're selling food, exporting food, or you are doing manufacturing or processing, is irrelevant. You need to know these numbers. The current GDP of a country is 296 trillion, but currently we're dealing with inflation rates of 33.2%. So that means if you extrapolate that to the price of goods in the market, people have less disposable income. This information is necessary because if you're doing a service or a product, right, that is not a need, it is a want, what's going to happen is that you're going to find the number of people who are buying your products do what? Deep. Because when people need to survive, they will start with their needs and work their way up to the wants. Like I always tell everyone, there are three things that were taught in, I think it was basic studies or social studies in primary school. The three essentials of life is what? Food, clothing, and shelter. So when inflation hits and people's disposable income is reduced, that's what's going to happen. So a bag of rice will go from this to that. So they'll cut out everything else to buy the bag of rice because they need to eat rice. They need to eat food. Unemployment is at 5%. Mortality rate is quite high. And mortality rate is high because people do not have access to medical facilities, medical treatment, and women are still dying in childbed because they don't have money. People are not taking care of themselves well. And all of these things that appear like negative indices, as an SME, it is an opportunity for you to arise and create a solution in that space. Interest rates are at 18.75%, and so that means that the cost of financing is very high as for an SME. And exchange rate, we know what it's doing. It's going up and down on a daily basis. At some point this year, it hit 1,800. At another point this year, in this same year, it went down to what? 900. And I think this week it's hovering somewhere around 1,003. And what are the implications for us, even as consumers? If we are a purely import-dependent nation, so that means that everything that comes in, if this dress I'm wearing is imported and it hits, even if it was bought for $20, the person who's selling this dress will calculate $20 at the prevailing exchange rate. As a matter of fact, that's the honest person. Most people will actually calculate at the expected, because they need to place this dress, calculate that, calculate the cost of the importation, calculate the cost of their employees, calculate the cost of their buildings, their rent, all the tax they have to pay, then put their profit. You end up at an item that is 3x the amount. So when people say, what is your business with? Your business is in Naira. What's your business? That's why it's your business, to know that. And then the funding gap, there's 158 billion Naira funding gap. And the funding gap is pretty much the distance between the amount of funds that an SME requires and the available funds. So just stop for a minute. So it says, I can't access funds, I can't access funds. Nobody can. Are they so right? Because the conditions to access funding is quite stringent. There are so many factors that organizations, and rightly so, because it's not a charity. They have to mitigate their risks. They have to make sure that there's a return of investment for the owners of this fund and to be profitable and sustainable for them to still continue to invest in other people. So even as an SME who has, even as a medium organization who has, I don't know, 500 million or even 100 million, there's a business that just requires 1 million and it will turn their business around. Remember, I told you that this was us. We started this business with less than 1 million naira. All we had was a whole lot of faith. A whole lot of faith, and guess what? A whole lot of faith and no other options, because we were very clear that at least for one person, that was it. We're done with employment. And so we started to toil. What looked like toiling. I'll come back to that story. But who was the son of Issachar? Today, everyone in this room, I'm calling you into a son of Issachar anointing. Because the sons of Issachar, they understood the times and the seasons. And so they told Israel what to do. Israel didn't do anything without consulting them. They knew what was going on in the market. They knew what was going on with the numbers. They knew what inflation was saying. They knew where their enemies were coming from. They knew which part of the land was fertile. They knew everything that was required. And it says that about 200 of them and their brethren were at their command. I think we're about 200 people in this room. So you are a son of Issachar today, and you're going to know the numbers. You're going to understand the climate that you're operating in. You're going to understand the challenges and the obstacles and the hurdles, because you need to know it so that the Lord can give you the strategy to overcome. The SME geographic spread shows about 51% of all the SMEs in Nigeria sitting within the Lagos region. So that's why there's a mass exodus in Lagos and high population. Now, the disadvantage with that, though, is that it means that you have a lot of competition for the same things that you're offering. But it's a stimulated market because everyone in Lagos is on a hustle. So you're more likely to get somebody who believes in what you're trying to do, right? But there's also the other side of it that says, perhaps I need to leave Lagos. Perhaps God, like Abraham, is calling him to move out of your comfort zone into another land, because there's only 5.5% of SMEs there. So your competition is less. So you could literally turn up there and become a king. Do you understand why it's necessary for you to be the sons of Issachar who understand the times and seasons and to listen to what God is saying to you? And so I tell you a funny story. What then happened was, this was us. Nobody was supposed to be moving around, right? So the one thing that should not sell in a lockdown is what? Exactly. So the business does car sales and car repairs and consulting along that value chain. But then we found out that people now had a lot of disposable income. So the money they used to use to go clubbing, partying, travels, fashion, there was nowhere to go to. All of a sudden, people had a lot of disposable income. And that thing that they had been putting off, they felt like they could put it into a car, because when the economy came back, they need to increase their hustle. So they need a reliable means of transportation. At least that's how we interpreted it. It might have been naive, but it may have been the Spirit of God speaking. And then people were buying cars in the middle of a lockdown. It was one of the weirdest things ever. On the regular. We had no break during the lockdown. At one point, I remember saying to I said, is there something we don't know about? Is there some kind of secret government pass that has allowed businesses, non-essential businesses, to open, and places that people are going to? Because I don't understand it. People were buying cars for themselves. People were buying cars for their wives. All of a sudden, I think it was just being in that space of family and now focusing on family, and people were built. While some relationships were falling apart, some relationships were actually being what? Mended. And you know our Nigerian men, when they want to show their odogu moves, what do? I give you one car. So they were buying cars. Cars were trading in the middle of a lockdown for a commodity that should not have been selling. If that's not God, I don't know what is. So, the federal government, so coming back to the economic climate, the federal government has something called the Budget of Renewed Hope. And this budget looks like it's already failing, because it's benchmarked at $78 to the barrel of oil, which means that if the barrel of oil price drops, like it did a few years ago, 2008, 2009, dropped to about 30, it means that this entire budget is what? Decimated, wiped out. And then even the production for Nigeria is 1.78. Well, the budget is hinged on 1.78, but Nigeria is actually producing less than that, significantly less than that, and OPEC is even reducing our quota. We have all kinds of issues: theft, violence, vandalization, oil bunkering, and also an apathy for further investments. A lot of the big multinationals are diversifying, divesting out of their assets. So basically, they are selling these assets to Nigerian players, and that's an opportunity for us. Do you know that? The Nigerian companies that bought marginal fields or operating fields from OMLs from the shells, today are big corporations. And those people at the time were barely 40. They were not big men in their 70s that had made billions of dollars. No. They were people who had what? Faith, courage, and they were willing to take risks. Key success factors for entrepreneurship. And so the next time you hear that a company is leaving Nigeria, they're selling their assets, instead of saying, oh, everyone is leaving Nigeria, you need to be asking, is there an opportunity for me or someone that I know or a consortium of people for us to come together and take advantage of this opportunity? It seems very far-fetched, right? But I promise you, it's closer than you think, because it's not your money that will finance it. Okay, just to say that. So government is going to pay attention to 3 areas: increase oil production, agricultural output, and to boost trade activities. And they've put a lot of funds towards these things. So as an SME, you need to start to position your business right. You need to get financial consultants and advisory on how you can meet the requirements to be able to access these funds. These funds are available, and people have accessed it and are continuing to access it to build their businesses. So instead of us sitting back and whining and complaining, we need to start to take advantage of this. Now, some other specific numbers as well. SMEs contribute over 50% of employment globally. But it actually says that 90% of businesses in Nigeria are SMEs. So you have to understand that you and this your quote-unquote side business is contributing to 90% of businesses in this country, and it's more than 47% of the gross domestic product of Nigeria. GDP, by the way, is just the measurement of all the goods and services in a country. That's it, in simple terms, right? So even an employee working in an organization, you are contributing to the GDP because you are trading your time for money. So all trading activities, every single good service produced in country, that is what the GDP is, right? So 49%, SMEs have contributed 49% to the GDP of this nation in the last 5 years, and are responsible for so many jobs, so many employments, even though they have challenges, but it is what it is. Now, this just represents the fertile grounds in the nation for you as a business person, and you're thinking, I have this business that, tie and dye, and you're trying to procure your tie and dye from Lagos. You're going to procure it at a premium price when you can go to the regions where they are doing it. I remember someone that wanted to start a fashion business, and I was talking to them about it, and I said, go to Aba. This is where the big textile merchants are bringing this in, and fabric that you can get for maybe 5,000 naira a yard. In Aba, you can get it for 700 naira a yard. And the person said to me, I don't like traveling. And I said, who cares? What does your life for traveling have to do with the fact that you're trying to drive your costs down so that your profits can go up? She goes, oh, it's stressful. I don't like Aba. I don't like traveling. But we are all laughing, but many of us are doing that. If God said to us now to move to Niger State, here in this room, right now in this conference, God says move to Niger State because that's the land that's set before you, would you go? They said yes. I don't agree with you. I know I'll struggle. But that's the truth. It is the truth. So you need to be checking, where will my goods and services thrive in this country? What are the hubs? But most importantly, what is God saying to me and where do I go? He said to Abraham, get up and move. And Abraham did. It was counted unto him as righteousness, and he became prosperous and successful. And so, before you start a business as an SME, you have to spy the land. When they sent the spies to go into the land, they told them, see what the land is like, how the people there are. Are they strong? Are they weak? Is the land good? Is it bad? Does the city have walls around it? Is the soil rich or poor? Do they have trees or not? Do your best to bring back some fruit of the land. And so we were spying the land. We were asking questions. We were trying to find out what was driving this consumer spending on a product or a good, a service that was not supposed to be needed at this point in time. And what happens is that when you start to see some success, it gives you the motivation, what? To carry on. It gives you the motivation to carry on. And so we carried on and we carried on. Now, somebody will say to me that all of these things are very difficult to do in this environment, but there are businesses that have successfully done it. We know a lot of Nigerian startups, and I'm sure when Ian speaks, he'll probably tell us a few stories, but they would have started as ideas in the heads of people, and they were thinking, how do we take this from here to here? There's one thing that God said we should always remember: you're not going to have everything that you need to start that business. I remember having this idea with a friend of mine. I'd gone to attend an MIT event called Solve. So Solve is just an aggregation of problem solvers, right? Innovators and creators and ideators from across the globe. And the challenge was that you should come up with a solution that addresses one of the world's issues or problems. And so you get shortlisted, you come and you pitch, and there were financiers, there were hedge funds, there were VCs, there were angel investors, there were professors. I'd never been in a gathering of that many smart people in my life. Like, literally, a hello conversation turned into a business seminar. That's how cerebral the people were. And I remember being so energized and saying, oh my God, I want to be standing on the Solve stage next year or the year from now. And I went to a friend of mine and I told her, and I said, okay, let's come up with an idea. We came up with this idea to provide education via tablets, right, or devices, mobile devices, to the children in the IDP camps. We came up with this fantastic idea. We came up with the curriculum. We came up with how we're going to get our faculty. But along the way, we met one roadblock. There were many roadblocks, but there was one roadblock we met, and that was where it just died. We're like, but how do we, even if we get the devices, how do we have it data ready? Because some of those IDP camps they don't have power, they don't have data. But guess what? That wasn't our problem to solve, right? That wasn't our problem to solve. As a faith-based business, as a person of faith, faith means that you don't actually know the end. You just trust God enough to know. We were trying to solve a problem that was not given unto us to solve. Because quite frankly, between the two of us, we didn't have the technical know-how to solve that problem. All we needed to do was to do what? Keep speaking about it. So write your vision on the tablet and make it plain for all to see, that a herald may run with it. So if we had those conversations in the right rooms, the right person would have heard it, and we have brought us the connections that was required. And of course, we're not attending business conferences like this at the time for us to spark ideas and innovation. So we dumped it, and we both went back to our corporate employment. She works in Total as a director now. I went off, I'm working for a Nigerian oil and gas company, and life was good and merry. Fast forward to a few years later, ULesson is announced doing exactly the same thing. And I remember crying because it's the story of the talent, right? What God has given to you. If you don't do anything about it, what's going to happen? Exactly. He's going to take it and give it to somebody else. God sprinkles ideas into the atmosphere. Who catches it and runs with it? Owns it. That's it. So it doesn't matter that the idea came to you first. Who catches it, runs to it. Because to whom who has been given, and they've done something with it, he'll be given even more. And so one of the things that was a success factor for us in the business was remaining undefiled. We made a decision that we would not cheat any of the people in the value chain of this business. We would not cheat our buyers. We would not cheat our suppliers. We would not cheat anybody that was involved in this business in any way, shape, and form. I remember sometimes when I would say to him, are you sure about this amount? And he'll say, hey, leave it, let's just leave it. I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm a numbers person, and he's a faith person. I need the numbers for my faith. He needs his faith for his numbers. And so it works. And so because Satan, scripture says that Satan was perfect in all his ways till iniquity was found in him. By the abundance of his trading, he became filled with violence and sinned and was cast out. So in the trading places of this nation, particularly in a complex environment like Nigeria, with all of the issues that I described earlier, it is so easy for you to get compromised, for you to get tainted, for you to get your hands dirty. And that in itself takes away the glory from God. And that's what we don't want to do. Now, one of the things that God also told us was about being 10 times better than anybody else. So it wasn't enough that we were just another car business. We needed to understand the ins and outs of this business like nobody else before. Remember Daniel and his friends? And he said to him that in all the matters of wisdom and understanding, that he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers in the land. So as an SME, you have to be 10 times better than anybody else that is delivering that service. There are instances where we've had consultants coming to do work, and I'm sitting there and smiling because I'm like, I'm 10 times better than this consultant. Not from a place of cockiness or arrogance, but just from a place of self-awareness. But I am happy that that's the case, because for me to be excellent, for a business to be excellent and known, you have to be 10 times better than everybody else. And so, where is the source of wealth? It is God. That is the ultimate source of wealth. He says that I'll give you hidden riches in secret places, which is exactly what he did. Because yet again, it made no sense that the one business that was not supposed to thrive at all in the lockdown was a business that was thriving and delivering the value was supposed to deliver. And so the three frameworks, three things. To summarize what God showed us, was three things that I've called the 3P framework. He said productive partnerships. So as an SME, who are you partnering with? Who is your supplier? Who's providing a service to you? Who is your advisor? Who is on your board? These are all people that you're partnering with. And because scripture says that two are better than one, they have a good return for their labor. And that was what we were doing as we were running this business. And it says propelling productivity. Please note that as an SME, you're going to work harder than everybody else. You don't have the liberties of public holidays. I remember I grew up in a family of traders. And my mom would say, when I would say to my mom, oh, today is a public holiday, she would say, well, I am private. It's till now, it is a running joke in my family. If you say, oh, public holiday, all the entrepreneurs in the family will say, well, we are private. Basically means that you don't stop working because you have to be productive. And it says that ship your grains across the sea for after many days that you receive a return. It says invest in 7 ventures. No, 8. For you don't know when disaster will come upon the land. So one thing that God also showed us was how we had to start diversifying. So in addition to the sales, we were doing repairs, we were doing consulting, we were supporting people to buy their own cars from other people. We had no issues. We were doing referrals, we were doing after-sales service, we were taking the products to their homes for them. I remember somebody coming up with this wish list. She said she wanted to get a car, and she came up with what she thought was a ridiculous requirement. Oh, I want the body to be this color, and I want the interior to be that color, and I want the rims to be that color. And I said to her, no problem. And 30 minutes later, I sent her a picture. And she said, I was just joking. I said, but the car exists. And the next day, the car was sent out to her for inspection. 1 week later, she bought the car. And she paid in USD. So that was how we started to build our revenue base and our capital. Please note that from the time he stopped being a side chick to the wife, 4 years in, the business is 100% financed from turnover. No financing, no loan, no debt. And then the final P was the pivotal performance, over and above 10 times better than everybody else. And it's possible because I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So let me introduce you to Rahab. And this is 2 more slides and I'm done. Rahab was a woman who many of us would disdain and snare down at. But this woman had multiple income streams because in addition to running the inn, she was providing allied services and to the pure, all things are pure. She's providing food. So she was a risk taker. She was willing to take the risk to to help Israel. But why was she able to take risks? Because she was a son of Issachar. She understood the times and seasons. She had intel. She had heard about the God of Israel and what he could do. And so she knew that they're going to take the land. So not only was she willing to help them, she immediately made a deal in that moment and said, you would rescue me and my family. And she was very networked. She was very influential. That's why the king even sent them to ask her. And she had the audacity to lie to the king, because what she was saving was bigger than what she was going to lose by telling the king the truth. And so if a woman like Rahab can take a risk like that, let alone us, who have an abundance of scriptures, teachers, mentors, coaches, information, successful businesses that we can look to do what we need to do. And so for us as a family, the Ubuntu spirit is a spirit of harmony, coming together. Our networking as the Hills Business Hub, all of us sitting here, these 200 sons of Issachar sitting in this room, you can't be leaving this place today without taking the numbers of people that you believe can add value to what you're doing. You can't leave here without thinking, what's good or service do I have that I can give to somebody else in exchange for the value that they can bring to me? Because that's how we can grow. Remember, two will get a better return for their labor, right? And we'll do that by deals, by synergies, by innovating, by treating our workforce right. Because our workforce, if treated right and allowed to even operate as entrepreneurs, they will add value to our business. The big multinationals already recognize that and are allowing organizations 15 to 20% of their time to do entrepreneurship. And if the idea is actually one that makes sense, guess what? They take it and they invest in it. So just imagine that somebody working for you comes up with an innovation. You turn around and invest, turn around and invest. You can literally go to sleep. One for us to know, and build in a sustainable way. So, as an SME, which is a small to medium enterprise, you must be an SME. SME in this regard refers to a subject matter expert. As an SME, you must be a subject matter expert, but more importantly, you must be a spiritual mining expert, because you must mine the word of God, the mind of God, for what he wants you to do and to be, how he will give you literally the blueprint for your industry, for your sector, and that's what will give you success. And so ask of me the nations as your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession is the theme for this conference. Today, the Lord is daring each and every one of us. Ask of me what you ought to do. Ask of me where you should do it. Ask of me how to do it. Ask of me who to do it with. Ask of me the pitfalls and the challenges waiting for me, and see if I will not give you the ends of the earth for your possession. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Make some noise for Pastor Uche, and also the Lord who used her well. Whoa, whoa, whoa. My God. Can I just have Hills music to come up, please? Okay. Now that was wealthy. I'm glad it's been recorded. I hope those online are also making notes. I got a lot from that. Put your hand up if you got a lot from that. Make some noise if you believe what you heard. Amen. We're going to see a shift. We are the sons of Issachar. We will spy the land, and we will get up and we will move like Abraham. Productive partnerships, diversify your business, spiritual mining. Oh, I felt that one. Guys, there's so much wealth in what she said. I'd encourage you to watch that again when you get home. Let it really sink in. I took some pictures of the slide. There was a lot of stats in there that can really help you. What I thought was wonderful